Every year we hear of dramatic natural disasters. Let's look at some of them. Also similar damage when landslides slide down a mountain, sometimes causing floods. Water can do a lot of damage. Just think of tidal waves crashing down on coastal villages as terrifying tsunamis. Tsunamis often come after an earthquake, which moves the earth under the sea. Earthquakes usually cause the most damage in towns and cities, where buildings move and fall down. Weather extremes can also cause similar damage to life and property. I mean hurricanes and tornadoes, when the wind goes wild. Too much water is a problem, but too little can be just as bad. Look at drought, where the lack of water causes illness and shortage of food. Let's have another look at these natural disasters.
Natural disasters have negative impact on our planet, generally decrease biodiversity. For example, they can either kill organisms directly or destroy the habitats so that they are no longer able to live in the area where the hazard occurred. Endangered species are especially vulnerable when habitat is destroyed. Natural disasters such as floods, tornadoes, earthquakes can disrupt and contaminate water supplies. Earthquakes create dust, debris, and gas emissions released from the ground. These toxic gases to the atmosphere which add to the air people breathe from. Furthermore, a strong tornado affects the nutrient cycling, destroying healthy soil by washing away the topsoil, which is important for the plants. Nutrient cycling is very important to the environment. These cycles are the process of life, and each of these nutrients are needed for any organism to function properly. Nutrient cycles link living organisms with non-living organisms through the flow of nutrients. But after any disaster such as earthquake, floods, and tornadoes, the nutrient cycles of nitrogen, carbon, water, and phosphorus will be affected. Firstly, carbon is released from any organism lungs into the atmosphere, and then plants will take in to produce oxygen. But earthquake caused a rise in the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. The earthquake destroyed plants, so now there are no plants to absorb carbon. Because of this, oxygen level also will be affected. Since there are no plants, will not be producing any oxygen through the photosynthesis process. Since there are no plants to carry out the photosynthesis process. Since there are no plants, animals won't be able to eat the plants to get the carbon. Even though the amount of animals left has decreased, when animals die, the amount of carbon in them will be absorbed into the soil. This will be in a less amount also, since they did not eat any plants to get the carbon. This means, since there is an excess amount of carbon in the atmosphere, it will cycle through the water, but the carbon in the soil has no way to transfer through. Secondly, carbon is released from organisms' lungs into the atmosphere, which from plants taking to produce oxygen. Earthquake caused a rise in the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. The earthquake destroyed plants, so now there are no plants to absorb carbon. Because of this, oxygen level will also be affected, since the plants will not be producing any oxygen through the photosynthesis process. Since there are no plants, animals also won't be able to eat the plants to get carbon. But the carbon in the soil has no way to transfer. Water cycle is the majorly affected compared to 4 other cycles. For example, floods cause a rise in groundwater. Plants may die, so they couldn't absorb the water. Water becomes polluted then. Organisms such as humans cannot use the water. So polluted water mostly got absorbed into the air, and the area will be dried out. Now, plants, ground soil, or organism not holding the water in, so the water got transferred into other places, and this impacts area in a desperate need for water. Lastly, phosphorus mostly in the plants and living things, but since they died, this caused them to decompose. When decomposed, phosphorus transferred into soil and water. Since there is no more plants to absorb the phosphorus, there was enough phosphorus in soil and water, but no way to get it back into living things. So it is not enough for the organism even though they needed it.
Whoa! You're laughing, right? Watching me tumble like that? Are you? Oh, no, go ahead. But hey, do you know what just happened? Whoa! There we go again. Well, this is nothing but an earthquake. A small one indeed. Come, let me tell you about earthquakes today.
Earthquake is shaking of the ground caused by the passage of seismic wave through Earth's rocks. Seismic waves are produced when some form of energy stored in Earth's crust is suddenly released, usually when masses of rock straining against one another suddenly fracture and slip. Earthquakes occur most often along geologic faults, narrow zones where rock masses move in relation to one another. It happened on 17 March 2022 in Eastern Japan, Tokyo. A 7.4 magnitude earthquake hit Eastern Japan late Wednesday night, killing at least 4 people and injuring over 100 others and cutting power to millions of homes. One of the people who died was a man in his 60 years old who lived in the city of Soma, the local disaster prevention office said on Thursday.
Earthquakes are usually caused by underground rock breaking unexpectedly and moving rapidly along a fault. This sudden relief of energy caused by seismic wave and make the ground shake. The plates or blocks of rock begin to move during and after the earthquake, and they continue to move until they become trapped again. The earthquake starts at the focus, with slip continuing along the fault. The earthquake is over when the fault stops moving. Seismic waves are generated throughout the earthquake. Ground shaking is the most common effect of earthquake. It is caused by seismic wave passing through the ground, and it can be relatively soft in a small earthquake to extremely powerful in a large earthquake. Strong ground shaking in earthquake can cause buildings to be damaged or destroyed, people and animals to be difficult standing or moving about, and objects to be flung around. Earthquake also cause landslide by both direct rupture and sustained shaking of unstable slopes. Landslide can easily damage structures in their paths, as well as block roads and railroad lines, or take hilltop residents with them. On rare occasions, landslide can even flood rivers. Tsunamis, which are popularly and incorrectly known as tidal waves, are a serious threat to many parts of the world, particularly those in the Pacific Ocean basin. Tsunamis are a succession of water waves that can travel great distance in a short amount of time when the seafloor moves vertically during an earthquake. Following earthquake, fire are a major source of damage. Ground rupture and liquefaction can easily rupture natural gas and water mass, contributing to the start of flames and hindering the effort to control them.
Anchor large appliances to walls using safety cable or straps. Install latch barrier on shelf and secure large heavy items and breakable directly to shelves to keep them from falling. Install latches on drawer and cabinet doors to keep contents from spilling.
Whoa! Whoa! Get inside the car, Kitty! We need to hurry up! We need to get out of here quickly! It's coming! It's coming!
What?
The tornado!
A change in wind direction and wind speed at high altitudes causes the air to swirl horizontally. A strong, dangerous wind that forms itself into an upside-down spinning cone is able to destroy buildings as it moves across the ground. Tornadoes typically look like a narrow funnel reaching from the clouds down to the ground. The wind speed of a tornado can vary from 65 to 250 miles per hour. This happened on 30th January 2022 at 6:40 p.m. The area affected were Kampung Tawas and Kampung Tasik Damai, Ipoh, Perak. At 6 p.m. that day, one of the residents was cooking when suddenly she heard the sound of strong wind outside her house. Roofs of some of the houses were being torn off and blown away by the strong wind. No injuries or death had been reported, said the Perak Fire and Rescue Department spokesman. Dozens of homes were damaged during a tornado-like freak storm in Kampung Tawas and Taman Tasik Damai that evening. This left most of the Chinese residents in Kampung Tawas in despair as they are due to celebrate Chinese New Year in just 2 days' time. Tornadoes form in very specific weather conditions, especially harsh monsoon season. Another cause is warm, humid air collides with cold, dry air. It developed from severe thunderstorms in warm, moist, unstable air along and ahead of cold fronts. The change of direction and speed of the wind with height can create a horizontal spinning effect within a storm cell. The rotating air of an updraft meets the rotating air of a downdraft and creates the iconic and scary funnel cloud. Pollution. Great amount of dust that was brought in from dry areas, flying dirt of buildings and more. It increases possibility of lung cancer and affects the function of lung because of the unhealthy air. Economic loss. Destroy lots of property resulting in a major economic impact. The damage caused from this disaster annually vary significantly. Environmental contamination. Break chemical containers, destroy pipelines results in the contamination of groundwater with oil, dioxides, raw sewage and other poisonous pollutants. Effect on the ecosystem. Animals also affected other than plants. Lots of animals die under falling trees and it also causes habitat loss for some species of animals. Be prepared by making a list of important information including phone numbers and also an emergency kit including water, medication and others. Stay aware of weather conditions by paying close attention to changing weather conditions in your area. Also look out for signs of tornado might approaching such as a dark or green colored sky, large hail or loud raw sounds like freight train. Know where to shelter. Go to basement or get into room without windows at the lowest floor. For added protections, get under something sturdy such as heavy table or workbench.
Wee! Whoa! Wee! Oh my! This is a flood! Help! Help! But first, you need to learn about floods. Now comes the most dangerous of them all, flash floods. This kind occurs within a very short time, that is 2 to 6 hours, and sometimes within minutes. This doesn't give any time to prepare. No warnings, no words of caution, just destruction.
Flood is an event where water inundates lands that is normally dry. Flood are a natural process that can be caused by a number of factors and affected by human activities. Floods occur at irregular intervals and there are no two floods are the same. Flood can occur suddenly and slowly. Sudden, heavy and intense rainfall can cause flood to quickly rise in the minute or hours that follow. These are known as flash flood. Flood can occur slowly in large catchment areas. Rainfall can build up over hours, days or weeks. This runoff from this rainfall may create significant flood that inundate large areas of land for days, weeks or months. This happened on 22 February 2022 in Sydney, Australia. Floods are caused by prolonged or heavy rainfall. Cyclones bring huge amount of moisture inland from the ocean and are a major cause of flood, particularly in coastal areas. Moreover, thunderstorms are relatively small in area but can produce very intense rainfall that can cause flood in smaller streams. Larger storms that form around moist air masses moving across the country cause flood over large inland areas. Heavy rainfall continues to impact southern and central and established coast and adjacent range include the South Coast, Illawarra, Metropolitan and Southern Hunter District. Based on Australia's Bureau of Meteorology, figures show Ross Bay in Sydney recorded 167.2 millimeters of rain in 24 hours on 7 April 2022. The suburb of Centennial Park recorded 1.63 millimeters and Sydney Airport 1.515 millimeter. The mean average of rain for April in the city is around 1.6.5 millimeters. The latest rainfall has seen Sydney surpass its annual rainfall average of 1.13.4 millimeters in just the first 3 months of 2022.
One of the effects from the flood is loss of property. In addition to the force of the water, flash flood can carry large debris such as boulders. This combination can cause heavy structural damage to homes, making them unfit to live in, and can carry away large pieces of property such as vehicles. The second effect is spread disease. Floods are the leading cause of weather-related infectious disease outbreaks. Flooding events increase the chance of spreading waterborne diseases such as hepatitis A and cholera. Receding floodwaters can create stagnant pools of water which provide the perfect breeding ground for mosquitoes, which can transmit malaria and other diseases. Flood events also lead to an increase in some forms of zoonosis. It's diseases humans can catch from animals, such as leptospirosis. Floods also carry contamination. Floodwater can be contaminated with pollutants such as agricultural pesticides, industrial chemicals, debris, and sewage. If contaminated floodwater enters the ocean, it can affect water quality and disrupt delicate ecosystems such as coral reefs. In February 2019, marine biologists feared for the safety of the Great Barrier Reef off the coast of Queensland, a state in Australia, after it was inundated with polluted floodwater. Flood can also harm wildlife. Flooding can have a negative effect on wildlife, causing drowning, disease proliferation, and habitat destruction. In 2012, hundreds of animals, including many vulnerable one-horned rhino, were killed in floods that swamped Kaziranga National Park in the Indian state of Assam. Unpredictable floods can be harmful even to aquatic life. For example, fish can be displaced and their nests destroyed. There are some alternative solutions so that people will be ready to confront this kind of natural disaster. Number 1 is Aquabex Flood Guard. For a smaller scale appliance, we have the Aquabex Entry Barrier System. It's a small scale dam that is designed to seal off doorways and entrances to buildings. By creating a seal with the surrounding surfaces, the rising water is kept from coming into the structure when these barriers are applied to all of the building's entryways. The barrier is completely reusable and can be quickly deployed in times of emergency. Next is flood cleanup safety. Cleanup activities following floods often pose hazards to workers and volunteers involved in the effort. Potential dangers include electrical hazards, carbon monoxide exposure, heat or cold stress, motor vehicles related dangers, fire, drowning, and exposure to hazardous materials. Because flooded disaster sites are unstable, cleanup workers might encounter sharp-jacked debris, biological hazards in the floodwater, exposed electrical lines, blood or other body fluids, and animals and human remains. In planning for and reacting to flood disasters, managers provide workers with hard hats, goggles, heavy work gloves, life jackets, and the watertight boots with steel toes and insoles. Last but not least is listen to the local authorities. Listen for boil water advisories. Local authorities will let you know if your water is safe for drinking and bathing. During a water advisory, use only bottled, boiled, or treated water for drinking and cooking.
As conclusion, these three natural disasters, earthquake, tornadoes, and floods, majorly affect our biosphere, hydrosphere, atmosphere, and geosphere. The extreme masses of water known as hydrosphere can destroy our biosphere, which is known as living organism, and also destroying buildings, land, which is the geosphere. The wind on our atmosphere can knock over trees and move cars. So this is how these natural disasters tremendously affect these four spheres. These natural disasters also can cause destruction of property, loss of financial resources and personal. In all natural disasters cannot be handled, delayed or stopped. Natural disasters are very dangerous and life-threatening. They occur in many different ways according to the cause of the disaster. One disaster might bring along the other, just like what happened to the earthquake in Japan, floods in Australia and terrible tornado in Malaysia. Our Earth has suffered a great deal from recurring natural disasters. A natural disaster is a sudden event that causes great extents of damage or deaths. In general, ecosystems react to changes in ways that maintain or restore balance to the ecosystem. Environmental change in the form of sudden disturbance can damage and disrupt ecosystems. However, over time, organisms will migrate back to damaged areas in predictable.
Before we end our video, let's enjoy this short animation clip from Lava regarding our group assignment natural disasters.
Huh?